Hi, it's Katrina. My friend David is actually going to be helping me out today, so we can give you a little bit more variety. Everyone say hi!
Number 10. The Ark of the Covenant. At a remote Ethiopian church in the northern Tigray region, 800 people were murdered trying to stop real-life raiders from stealing the Ark of the Covenant. According to the legends, the Ark is a mystical chest made of solid wood and plated with gold, containing multiple religious relics. The Ark is said to hold the 10 Commandments given from God to Moses, along with Aaron's rod and a small amount of manna. If you're not sure what manna is, it was what God allegedly fed to the Israelites as they wandered the desert for 40 years. This magical substance is said to be held in a small container inside the Ark. All historical records of the Ark are dubious at best. Nobody has ever been able to prove that this was a real historical artifact. Nonetheless, the story is that it was held at the Temple of Solomon up until the city of Jerusalem was attacked in 586 BC by the Babylonians. It was King Nebuchadnezzar II who ordered the brutal onslaught and who allegedly stole the Ark and took it back to Babylon. Nobody has ever been able to find it since then. Some believe the Ark was stolen back by the Knights Templar centuries later. Some think it's hidden underneath the floor of a French cathedral. Others say it's stashed in Alexander the Great's tomb, which has never been found either. And then there are the Ethiopians. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church says the Ark is in Ethiopia right now. It's supposedly kept in the Church of St. Mary of Zion in the ancient city of Axum, once the seat of the Axumite kingdom and the Queen of Sheba. Legend has it the Ark was brought to Ethiopia by King Menelik, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. This supposedly happened in the 10th century BC, 5 centuries before the Babylonians attacked Jerusalem. The Ark was then kept in Ethiopia, hidden away from everyone else, and has remained there ever since. It's kept in a forbidden chapel at the church, where only its keeper and certain virgin monks are able to look at it. During Ethiopia's political upheaval of 2021, thieves tried to steal the Ark. When locals heard the shooting, they rushed to protect what they believed is the holiest relic on earth. 800 people were slaughtered protecting the Ark of the Covenant, which many historians say is nothing but a cheap replica. This wasn't some historical thing that happened in the Crusades. It was 2 years ago. Do you think the Ark of the Covenant is still out there? Or do you think it was destroyed? Let me know in the comments. Number 9. South American mummies. Primitive hunter-gatherers in South America started to mummify their dead roughly 7,000 years ago. This was nearly 3,000 years before the Egyptians began practicing the same thing. It was the Chinchorro who likely started the fad of mummification. They lived in Chile's Atacama Desert 6,500 years before the Inca Empire fell. Scientists have always wondered why the Chinchorro began to preserve their dead bodies. It seems absurd that nomadic hunters suddenly began to ritualistically preserve the corpses of their friends. Studies have shown how they did it, and it was gruesome but surprisingly sophisticated. The skin was removed to be dried, the organs were scooped out, and the body was filled with dried plants and sticks. Then the skin was surgically reattached to the body was painted black or red, and they were dressed in a black wig. The deceased's face was molded over with clay, and finally, they were buried in the desert. According to Pablo Marque, an ecologist from the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile, this type of funerary ritual typically appeared in sedentary populations. What that means is that it was only when large groups got together in stable cities that they started coming up with these kinds of rituals. But the Chinchorro were nomadic, usually living in mobile groups of no more than 100 individuals. To solve the issue, a team of scientists used math. They figured that every Chinchorro group produced about 400 corpses a century. They typically buried their corpses in the dry desert. If they first settled here 10,000 years ago, by the time they started mummification, there would have been thousands of bodies piled up and preserved in the sand, mummified by the naturally dry climate. The team believes mummies became a normal part of the Chinchorro landscape. They were constantly exposed to natural mummies because of the shallow graves and the desert, and it probably spiraled from there into a complex ritual. The next big mystery is trying to figure out how the art of mummification traveled from the deserts of South America to ancient Egypt. And now for number 8. But first I want to give a huge thank you to Firewolves for your generous support. We wouldn't be here without you and appreciate you spending time with us. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to join the Origins Explained family and for more videos about unsolved mysteries. Number 8. The Fistest Disc. The Fistest Disc is one of the strangest archaeological discoveries of all time. Experts still can't agree on how it was made, what it was used for, or where it even came from. The discovery of the disc dates back to 1908. It was found 40 miles, 64 kilometers from Heraklion on the island of Crete in Greece. This island has been inhabited ever since 4000 BC, maybe even before that. It was the kingdom of the Minoans, the home of the Cretan Minotaur and the seat of King Midas. The disc was found in the ruins of an old palace from 1900 BC. The reason it's so fascinating is that the disc is a fired clay plate the size of a frisbee, covered completely in bizarre illustrations. There are 242 images that can only be described as hieroglyphic. They can be categorized into 45 different symbols, with many of the characters separated by dashes and dots. Some of the imagery includes animals and people, abstract shapes, and some that look like Norse runes. There's no debate over what the artifact is. It's a disc with some strange pictures stamped on it. The controversy surrounds how it was made and why. It appears that prior to being baked, it was stamped using metal seals or ancient stamps, which would make it the oldest object of its kind made with what were essentially cookie cutters. It would be another 2,000 years before such a production technique was used again. Then there's trying to decode the symbols. Experts from every academic field imaginable have tried and failed to translate the Fistest Disc. Scholars believed it could be the Minoan writing system Linear A, Mycenaean Linear B, Anatolian and Egyptian hieroglyphs, Semitic and even Indo-European languages. Most commonly it has been compared to ancient Greek dialects, but so far, no luck. The symbols on a disc remain a mystery, so if you want, be sure to take a crack at it. Number 7. The Legends of Fort Mountain. At the southern end of the Appalachian Mountains is a place called Fort Mountain. It looks ordinary enough, just another rolling Appalachian hill with trees clinging to its sides. But at the very top is a stone formation, 885 feet, 270 meters long. The mountain gets its name from the ruins of what appears to be a fortress built centuries ago at its summit. The zigzagging rock wall is nearly 12 feet, 3.6 meters thick, rising to 7 feet, 2.1 meters high in some places. All along the wall are pits, burial cairns, stone gateways, the ruins of mysterious rings, and other oddities. Researchers believe the wall and its accompanying monuments were built around 400 AD. However, that's never been verified by any scientific method. The mystery of Fort Mountain is just as intriguing as any mystery of ancient Egypt. Nobody knows who built the place or why. We know that early visitors to Appalachia were fascinated by the fortress. There were rumors it was built by Hernando de Soto to defend against Creek Indians in 1540. But that couldn't possibly be true since de Soto was only in the area for about 2 weeks. There are other legends, each one stranger than the last. The Cherokee believed the ruins were built by the Moonite people who lived in Lower Appalachia. When the Cherokee entered the area in the 1700s, they encountered a mysterious ethnic group they called Moon-eyed because they couldn't see well during the day. These were nocturnal humans who preferred to fight at night. They were supposedly small, just like dwarves, had thick beards and extremely pale skin. Some historians have suggested they were albinos and possibly the ancient ancestors of the Kuna people of Panama, who have a high rate of albinism. The Moon-eyed people were driven from the region by the Cherokee and never seen again. The fortress was supposedly their creation. Yet another legend suggests the fort was built by a Welsh prince who made it to Alhambra in 1170, then built a castle in Appalachia. Number 6. Jesus and the Knights Templar. One of the great historical mysteries involves Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. While the church is immovable in their belief that Mary Magdalene did not have a romantic relationship with Christ, not everyone is so convinced. Many believe Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married and had children. There's even been a few religious documents uncovered that suggest similar, but these documents have been refuted by the church or outright ignored. But if Mary and Jesus did procreate, wouldn't that mean someone alive right now is the direct descendant of Christ? In 1945, 2,000-year-old texts were discovered in the Egyptian village of Nag Hammadi. These texts were the Gospels of the life of Jesus, but they were not like the Gospels in the New Testament. These went into more serious detail about Christ's life on earth and made blatant suggestions that Jesus and Mary were an item. She was not insignificant, but rather the most important of all the disciples. In fact, it's believed she didn't become a prostitute in the eyes of the church before the church said so in the 6th century. Rumor has it that Jesus and Mary were common knowledge in the early days of Christianity. It's also believed the Roman Catholic Church has been trying to destroy the bloodline of Jesus Christ for centuries while silencing anyone who knows about it. Some believe the Knights Templar not only knew about the bloodline, but were actively trying to protect it. That was why in the early 12th century, the Catholic Church charged them with heresy, disbanded the Knights, and burned many of them alive. Number 5. The Golden Hat. The Golden Hat of Schifferstadt was discovered in an empty field near the town of the same name in Germany in 1835. It's one of the most unusual pieces of headgear ever discovered, looking like a prehistoric top hat made from solid gold. It was constructed in the Bronze Age around 1400 BC. It isn't solid gold, but is wrapped in a gold sheet. Researchers believe it was used to decorate someone's headdress. It's not even the only one that was ever found. There are 3 other golden hats from the European Bronze Age, each one of them just as strange. The Schifferstadt gold hat is the oldest of them all and the best preserved. 3,500 years ago, this was an excellent piece of craftsmanship. The hat was made with an exoskeleton of copper wire for extra stability and is about 1 foot, 0.3 meters tall. It likely wasn't worn directly on the head, but placed like a crown on top of some other hat-like thing. Nobody knows for sure. Researchers think the tall gold hat served as a religious insignia, likely worn by a priest of an unknown sun cult. During the European Bronze Age, complex religions were spreading to every corner of civilization. The majority of these religions centered on worship of the sun. This is true of Egyptian culture, the Inca, the Aztec, the more ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia. Everyone loved the sun, but they all worshipped it differently. In this particular part of Germany, it looks like sun priests wore tall golden hats as part of their worship. Number 4. A Roman mystery. A pair of silver coins was recently found on an uninhabited island in the Baltic Sea. The island is famous for attracting shipwrecks over the centuries. Nobody understands how the coins got to this strange destination, mainly because they were minted in the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago. They could have been left by Norse traders. They may have washed up from a shipwreck. Or they could have been dropped by curious Romans during an unknown voyage. Researchers are still trying to figure out what in the world happened here. Johan Ronnby from Södertörn University in Stockholm was one of the team members who found the coins in March 2023. The team was scouring the beach for lost treasure on the island of Gotska Sanden with metal detectors. No one was really expecting to find lost treasure, maybe some artifacts, but not a real treasure. Discovering Roman silver coins blew everyone's minds. These are silver denarii minted during the reign of 2 very famous emperors. One was minted during the rule of Emperor Trajan between 98 and 117 AD. The other was minted a little later during the rule of Emperor Antonius Pius between 138 and 161. How much was a silver denarii worth in the 1st century? It was about a single day's pay for a laborer. This was the standard coin of ancient Rome and the literal word for money in both Spanish and Italian. The words denaro and denaro both come from the Roman Empire's denarii. But how did the coins get to the island? That's the real question here. Johan Ronnby says Roman coins remained in circulation long after they were minted and never really fell out of value. Because they were made from silver, they were never truly worthless like paper money if it drops in value. This means they weren't necessarily from someone who lived during the Roman Empire. Because the waters around the island are notoriously dangerous, a shipwreck is the main theory right now. A ship may have sank, and the shifting currents brought the Roman coins to shore. Number 3. Roger Bacon's quest for knowledge. Roger Bacon was a mysterious man who lived in the 13th century. He was a scholar who contributed as much as he could to the fields of science, philosophy, and theology. And what did Roger Bacon get for his efforts? Nothing but pain. Roger was born in Somerset, England, around 1210. We don't know much about his early life, only that his family was wealthy and that he studied at Oxford University. He would eventually become one of the masters of Oxford, lecturing students on Aristotle. He moved on to the University of Paris, lectured arithmetic and grammar, and made great headway in astronomy and music. Up until about 1251, Roger Bacon moved between England and France while studying relentlessly. He became a friar in the Franciscan order in 1256. This was fairly common for anyone with a lot of studies under their belt. There weren't exactly private scientific institutes, so you had to join the church. But while Roger was a Franciscan, he got into a lot of trouble. The church thought he was too smart for his own good and forced him into menial labor so that he didn't have enough time to study or think. In 1266, Pope Clement IV commissioned Roger to give him some of his scientific work. Clement was notoriously open-minded when it came to scientific knowledge. Roger went to work writing an estimated 1 million words in less than a year. He produced some of the most epic works on philosophy ever written, but then Pope Clement died in 1268 and Roger had no sponsor. What happened to him next is largely a mystery. Modern scholars think Roger was imprisoned due to his combative personality and his scientific studies challenging the church. It's believed he died around 1294, so there are no reliable historical records about his death. Roger's work survived long after he was gone. One of the reasons he scared the church was just how smart he was. He came up with the first descriptions of gunpowder. He made advancements in optics that paved the way for eyeglasses and a telescope. He also made estimations about the sizes of celestial bodies, which was a pretty big deal. He was one of the real geniuses of the ancient world, but he never gets much credit for anything these days. Have you ever heard of Roger Bacon before this video? Let me know in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 2. The Meniere de Calawas. The Meniere de Calawas is the tallest ancient stone monument still standing in its original position, not only in Europe, but in the entire world. It's standing in a cluster of trees right next to some fields where cows graze, looking totally unimportant and boring. It's in such a weird place and receives so little attention, most people don't even know the monument exists. Yet it's more impressive than many ancient structures standing over 30 feet, 9 meters tall on a high ridge. This allows it to be seen by travelers miles away. The historical origin of the Meniere de Calawas is unknown. It received great attention in the 18th century by local French. It appeared in a lot of pieces of artwork, was described by poets and writers, but eventually fell out of fashion. Its much more ancient history goes back to time immemorial. The menhir is clearly thousands of years old, but we don't have an exact date on it. A rough estimate is that it was erected 4,000 years before today. The monument weighs an impossible 150 tons, 150,000 kilograms, was carved from a single chunk of porphyroid granite, and likely had to be carried about a mile from where it was quarried. As you can imagine, this would have been very tough for the monument builders. The huge monument may have been a kind of signpost, a point of navigation to help travelers know where they were. It could have been used in strange cultic ceremonies. It may have been a grave marker for some unknown king. It's just really not clear. The giant stone may have also had something to do with fertility. It was a popular tradition up until the 19th century for new brides to take their husbands to the stone and make them kiss it. They also rubbed their navels against a pillar, thinking it would give them a better chance of having a boy instead of a girl. All around the pillar, it's polished and worn at the exact height of the belt from people rubbing themselves on it. Number 1. King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Some of the smartest archaeologists in the world have struggled to decipher an ancient inscription found on a shattered jar. The jar and its message date back to the rule of King Solomon in Israel during the 10th century BC. It was found buried with other jar fragments during an excavation in Jerusalem in 2012. After so long struggling to find out the inscription, researchers have finally got it. Scientists published their findings in the Jerusalem Journal of Archaeology. They believe the inscription was engraved in an ancient South Arabian script called Sabaean. It was spoken commonly throughout the Arabian Peninsula, which at the time was part of the Kingdom of Sheba. The inscription itself is super boring. All it says is Laudanum 5. but its implications are very exciting. The text is a reference to an aromatic plant resin used to make incense. The vessel was made in Jerusalem and used by an incense maker, one who spoke a language from the kingdom of Sheba. This is some of the first real physical evidence that Jerusalem had a strong relationship with Sheba's kingdom, as is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. There are a lot of mysteries here, the biggest of which is the kingdom of Sheba. Although the Queen of Sheba's seat of power is traditionally thought to have been in the ancient kingdom of Aksum, Ethiopia, that's never been proved. Neither has the existence of the legendary queen. Some believe she ruled from modern Yemen in Arabia and had nothing to do with the Aksumite kingdom. Others don't even think she was real. The only thing this scrap of pottery proves is that the two kingdoms had a great relationship. It confirms the Bible's story of Solomon being close to the kingdom of Sheba. And if that much is true, you have to wonder how much more of the Old Testament is historical fact. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and come back again soon for more shocking videos.